They say every woman remembers the day she got married. I remember mine for all the wrong reasons. My name is Adaeze Okonkwo, but the world would come to know me as Jade Seo, wife of South Korea's most dangerous man. I wasn't walked down an aisle. I was traded like currency to pay my father's gambling debts. And the man waiting at the altar, Park Yunho, billionaire, Mafia heir. A man whose eyes held more secrets than the Seoul underground had bodies. I thought I was entering a prison. I had no idea I was about to start a war. And fall desperately, dangerously in love with my captor. The sound of shattering glass echoed through the Okonkwo family compound in Ikoyi. Adaeze, Ada to her friends, though she'd soon lose the privilege of having friends, pressed her back against her bedroom door, listening to the chaos unfold downstairs. Her father's voice, desperate and pleading. Her mother's sobs. And another voice, cold and clinical, speaking accented English with the precision of a surgeon wielding a scalpel. Mr. Okonkwo, you've had 6 months. My employer's patience has reached its conclusion. Adaeze had known this day was coming. Her father's gambling addiction had been an open secret in their wealthy Lagos social circle for years. What she hadn't known was the extent of his debts, or more importantly, who he owed. The whispers about Asian syndicate money, about loans that came with interest rates that could suffocate an entire family legacy, had seemed like dramatic exaggeration. They weren't. She crept to the top of the stairs, her silk nightgown clinging to her skin in the oppressive Lagos humidity. Through the ornate railings, she could see 3 men in expensive suits standing in her family's living room. They looked profoundly out of place among her mother's carefully curated collection of African art and family photographs documenting 3 generations of Okonkwo success. Please, her father begged, and the sound of Chief Emmanuel Okonkwo, a man who'd built a shipping empire, who'd shaken hands with presidents and dined with oil magnates, reduced to begging made Adaeze's stomach turn. Give me 1 more month. Just 1 more month. Your daughter, the cold voice said simply. That's the offer. Final offer. Adaeze's breath caught. Her hand gripped the railing so tightly her knuckles went pale against her dark skin. My daughter. Her father's voice cracked. Mr. Park Yunho requires a wife. A marriage of strategic alliance. Your daughter is educated, beautiful, and from a respectable family, for now. The marriage contract is simple. She becomes Mrs. Park Yunho Seo. Your debt is forgiven. Your family's reputation remains intact. Your shipping business continues operating without interference. And if I refuse? Her father's question was barely a whisper. Then by this time tomorrow you'll have no business, no reputation, and depending on how cooperative you choose to be, possibly no family. The choice, Mr. Okonkwo, is remarkably simple. Adaeze didn't wait to hear more. She burst down the stairs, her natural hair wild around her shoulders, her eyes blazing with the same fire that had gotten her expelled from 2 boarding schools and made her the terror of Lagos socialite circles. I'll do it. 4 heads turned toward her. Her mother gasped. Her father's face crumpled with shame and relief. The 3 suited men regarded her with cold assessment. Ada, no, her mother started. How much does he owe? Adaeze demanded, descending the stairs with the regal bearing her grandmother had drilled into her since childhood. She might be wearing a nightgown, but she carried herself like she was dressed for a coronation. The lead negotiator, she'd later learn his name was Kim Jae-sung, Yunho's head of security, pulled out a tablet and showed her a number. Adaeze's vision blurred for a moment. $47 million. Her father had gambled away $47 million. And this marriage? How long? Permanent, Kim Jae-sung said without inflection. Mr. Park requires a wife, not a temporary arrangement. You'll move to Seoul. You'll assume the role of Mrs. Seo. You'll conduct yourself appropriately for someone of your new station. I want it in writing, Adaeze said, her voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside her chest. My family's debt completely forgiven. Their business protected. My younger siblings' education secured. And I want my own bank account with enough money to maintain my independence. Kim Jae-sung's eyebrow raised a fraction of an inch, the most emotion she'd seen from him. You negotiate. Already. I'm Nigerian, Mr. Kim. We invented negotiation. If I'm going to be sold like palm oil at Mile 12 Market, I'm going to ensure I get fair market value. For the first time, Kim Jae-sung smiled. It wasn't a warm smile, but it held a hint of respect. Mr. Park will find you interesting. Very well. Your terms are acceptable. We leave for Seoul tomorrow evening. Pack what matters. Everything else will be provided. Just like that, Adaeze's life was over. Or so she thought. The private jet touched down at Incheon International Airport at dawn. Adaeze had barely slept during the 16-hour flight, her mind racing through every possible scenario, every potential escape plan, every way this could go catastrophically wrong. She'd Googled Park Yunho during the flight, but information was surprisingly scarce. A few business articles about Park Industries, a conglomerate with fingers in shipping, real estate, technology and entertainment. One blurry photograph from a charity gala showing a tall man in a tuxedo, his face partially obscured. And rumors. So many rumors. Whispered connections to Seoul's underground. Stories about rivals who disappeared. Tales of a man who'd inherited his father's empire at 23 and had spent the subsequent 7 years consolidating power with ruthless efficiency. The car that picked her up from the airport was a black Mercedes S-Class with windows so darkly tinted she couldn't see out. Kim Jae-sung sat across from her, silent and watchful. Will I meet him today? She asked as Seoul's sprawling cityscape blurred past. Tonight. The marriage ceremony is scheduled for 8 p.m. Marriage ceremony. Today. Adaeze's voice rose despite her attempt at composure. I just got off a plane. I haven't even. Everything has been arranged. Stylist will prepare you. The ceremony is private. Immediate family only. Given the circumstances, Mr. Park prefers discretion. Of course he does, Adaeze muttered. Can't have people knowing he bought a wife like he's shopping at Lotte department store. Kim Jae-sung's lips twitched. Ms. Okonkwo, may I offer some advice? Can I stop you? Mr. Park is not a man who tolerates defiance. Your spirit is admirable, but it would be wise to temper it with strategic thinking. At least initially. Strategic thinking. Is that what we're calling survival now? The car pulled up to a building in Gangnam that looked like it had been designed by someone who thought traditional Korean architecture and modern minimalism could have a very expensive baby. The penthouse, because of course Yunho lived in a penthouse, occupied the entire top floor. A team of women descended on Adaeze the moment she entered. Korean, Japanese, and one Nigerian stylist who introduced herself as Kemi and whispered in Yoruba. Sister, breathe. I've been working for the Park family for 3 years. It's not as bad as you think. Well, mostly. That didn't inspire confidence. 4 hours later, Adaeze stood in front of a full-length mirror and barely recognized herself. The stylist had transformed her natural hair into an elegant updo that somehow honored both her Nigerian heritage and Korean aesthetic. The dress was a modern hanbok in deep emerald silk that made her dark skin glow. She looked like a queen. She felt like a sacrifice. It's time, Kemi said gently. The ceremony room was small, intimate, and suffocatingly formal. Yunho's mother sat in the front row, her expression carefully neutral. His younger sister couldn't hide her curiosity. A handful of stern-faced men who radiated danger despite their expensive suits lined the walls. And then there was Yunho. Park Yunho stood at the altar, if you could call the raised platform draped in silk an altar, and Adaeze's breath caught despite herself. The photographs hadn't done him justice. He was tall, easily 6'2", with a kind of sharp, angular features that Korean beauty standards worshipped. His suit was black, perfectly tailored, and probably cost more than her father's car. But it was his eyes that stopped her. Cold, calculating, and utterly, devastatingly empty. This wasn't a man. This was a beautiful statue with a pulse. Adaeze walked toward him with her head high, her grandmother's voice in her head, An Okonkwo woman never bows, never apologizes, never breaks. She'd added her own addendum. Until she chooses to. The ceremony was conducted in both Korean and English. Adaeze spoke her vows in a clear, strong voice, making no attempt to hide her Nigerian accent. If these people wanted a trophy wife who'd disappear into the background, they'd chosen the wrong woman. When the officiant pronounced them married, Yunho didn't kiss her. He simply nodded once and turned to face their small audience. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said in English, his voice deep and controlled, "may I present Mrs. Jade Seo?" He'd given her a Korean name without even asking. The reception lasted exactly 45 minutes. Polite congratulations, carefully orchestrated photographs, toasts with champagne that cost more than most people's monthly salary. Through it all, Yunho barely looked at her, barely spoke to her, barely acknowledged her existence beyond what protocol demanded. Finally, mercifully, it ended. Kim Jae-sung appeared at her elbow. "The car will take you to Mr. Park's residence. Your belongings have been moved to your quarters." "My quarters?" "We're not." She stopped, realizing how naive the question sounded. "Mr. Park maintains separate accommodations. You'll have your own suite. He values privacy." Of course he did. The penthouse was obscenely large for one person, let alone two people who apparently planned to avoid each other. Kemi showed her to her suite. A bedroom, bathroom, walk-in closet, and sitting room that together were larger than her entire family home in Lagos. "Get some rest," Kemi advised. "Tomorrow we'll go over household rules, your schedule, your responsibilities." "Responsibilities? What responsibilities? I'm his wife, not his employee." Kemi's smile was sad and knowing. "In this house, Mrs. Seo, you're both." Adaeze waited until she was alone before she let herself fall apart. She sank onto the bed, a massive four-poster thing that could sleep 6 people comfortably, and let the tears come. Silent, angry tears that she wiped away furiously because crying changed nothing. She was married. To a stranger. In a country where she didn't speak the language. Trapped in a golden cage with a man who looked at her like she was a business acquisition, not a wife. But Ada Okonkwo, Jade Seo, had never been good at being trapped. Day 3 of her new life, Adaeze decided to test the boundaries of her cage. She woke at dawn. Jet lag still had her in its grip, and explored the penthouse. It was sterile, meticulously organized, and utterly devoid of personality. No family photos, no personal touches, just expensive furniture, expensive art, and expensive emptiness. She found the kitchen and raided it, making herself a breakfast of eggs and whatever she could find that resembled ingredients. The housekeeper, Mrs. Park, no relation to Yunho, apparently everyone in Korea was named Park, looked scandalized when she walked in. "Mrs. Seo, you should have called. I would have prepared. I can make my own breakfast, Mrs. Park. I'm not helpless." After eating, Adaeze changed into yoga pants and a sports bra. Her luggage had arrived, and she'd specifically requested her workout clothes, and proceeded to do yoga in the main living room, her music playing from her phone. Afrobeats. Loud Afrobeats. She was in downward dog when she heard the voice. "What are you doing?" Adaeze looked up, technically down given her position, to find Yunho standing in the doorway of his home office. He was dressed in casual clothes for the first time she'd seen. Black jeans, black t-shirt, and an expression that suggested he'd just discovered a wild animal had invaded his carefully controlled habitat. "Yoga," she said simply, holding the pose. "Good for flexibility and stress relief. I'd offer to teach you, but you look like stress relief isn't in your vocabulary. This is a shared space. This is our home. Shared as you said. I'm sharing it." She flowed into cobra pose, deliberately taking her time. "The music is loud. The music is Burna Boy. If you're going to force me to live in Korea, I'm going to make sure Nigeria lives here too." Something flickered in Yunho's eyes. Annoyance. Intrigue. It was hard to tell with a man whose face seemed carved from marble. "Breakfast is at 7. Dinner is at 8. You'll be informed of any social obligations. Otherwise, you're free to do as you please within the residence. Within the residence? Am I a prisoner, Mr. Park? You're my wife, Mrs. Seo. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, well, stretching, they look remarkably similar. Yunho stepped closer, and for the first time, Adaeze felt a flicker of something that wasn't anger. He was tall, imposing, and when he moved, it was with the grace of a predator. He crouched down so they were eye level, his face inches from hers. You agreed to this marriage. I agreed to save my family from your organization's threats. Let's not pretend this was a choice. Everything is a choice, Jade. You could have let your father face the consequences of his actions. You chose to pay his debt with your freedom. That was your choice. And you chose to buy a woman like I'm a luxury car. What does that say about you, Mr. Park? For a long moment they stared at each other. Adaeze refused to look away, refused to show the fear that was doing backflips in her chest. This man could destroy her with a word, could make her disappear with a phone call, could break her in ways she didn't want to imagine. But she'd be damned if she'd let him see her afraid. You're not what I expected, Yunho finally said, his voice softer. Neither are you. I expected a monster. So far, you're just a man with control issues and questionable interior design taste. The corner of his mouth twitched. It wasn't a smile. She suspected Yunho didn't know how to smile, but it was something. The music stays at this volume until 9 a.m. After that, lower it or use headphones. That's a compromise. I didn't think you knew how to compromise, Mr. Park. I'm full of surprises, Mrs. Seo. He stood and walked back to his office, and Adaeze released a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Round 1 had gone to her. Barely. But she'd take the victory. She had no idea that Yunho was watching her from his office window, a small, genuine smile crossing his face for the first time in years. The war between them had just begun. And neither of them had any idea that wars sometimes ended in something more dangerous than victory. They ended in surrender. The thing about living with a stranger was that you learned their rhythms whether you wanted to or not. In the 3 weeks since her marriage, Adaeze, she still couldn't think of herself as Jade, had learned that Yunho woke at 5 a.m., worked until midnight, ate precisely portioned meals with mechanical efficiency, and never, ever let his guard down. She'd also learned that the penthouse had security cameras everywhere except the bedrooms and bathrooms. That Kim Jae-sung reported her daily activities to Yunho. That her movements were tracked, her phone calls monitored, and her credit card statements reviewed. She was a bird in a golden cage, and the cage door was locked from the outside. But Adaeze had never been good at staying caged. Mrs. Seo, your Korean language tutor is here, Mrs. Park announced one afternoon. The tutor, a patient woman named Professor Han, had been hired to teach Adaeze Korean. The lessons were progressing slowly. Korean was a brutal language to learn, but Adaeze was determined. If she was going to survive in this country, she needed to understand what people were saying about her. And oh, they talked. She'd caught the whispers, the sideways glances from staff, the barely concealed curiosity. The Mafia prince had married a black woman from Africa. It was scandalous, exotic, and endlessly fascinating to people who'd probably never left Seoul. Your pronunciation is improving, Professor Han said encouragingly as Adaeze stumbled through another sentence. My pronunciation sounds like I'm chewing glass, but thank you for lying politely. Professor Han laughed. You have spirit. That's good. You'll need it. Need it for what? The professor's smile faded slightly. The world you've married into. It's not kind to outsiders. And you're about as outside as one can get. Mr. Park's associates, his family, even his enemies, they're all watching to see if you'll break. Then they're going to be disappointed. I don't break, Professor Han. I bend, I adapt, I strategize. But I don't break. Good. Professor Han gathered her materials. Because next week, you'll be attending your first public event as Mrs. Park Yunho Seo. Charity Gala. All of Seoul's elite will be watching. After the professor left, Adaeze paced her room like a caged lioness. Public event. She'd be displayed like a trophy, judged by people who already looked down on her, all while pretending to be the perfect submissive wife. She needed air. Real air. Not the recycled atmosphere of this sterile penthouse. She found Kemi in the laundry room and pulled her aside. I need to get out of this building. Just for a few hours. Is there a way? Kemi's eyes widened. Mrs. Seo, you can't just leave. Mr. Park has rules. Mr. Park has a lot of rules, and I'm about to break several of them. Are you going to help me or not? Kemi bit her lip, clearly torn between loyalty to her employer and sympathy for Adaeze. Finally she sighed. There's a service elevator that the security team doesn't monitor as closely. If you're fast and careful. But Mrs. Seo, if they catch you. They won't. 20 minutes later, Adaeze was walking the streets of Gangnam in jeans, a hoodie and oversized sunglasses. She'd tied a scarf around her natural hair and walked with a kind of confidence that made people assume she belonged. Seoul was overwhelming. Neon signs in Korean characters she couldn't read. The smell of street food mixing with car exhaust. Crowds moving with purposeful efficiency. It was nothing like Lagos's chaotic energy, but it had its own rhythm, and Adaeze found herself walking for blocks, just breathing, just existing outside the cage. She ended up in Itaewon, the international district. Here at least she saw other black faces, heard English being spoken, felt less like an alien specimen. She ducked into a bar called the Underground. The irony wasn't lost on her, and ordered a drink. Nigerian? The bartender asked in English, his accent American. How did you know? You've got that Lagos confidence. Can spot it a mile away. Marcus, Detroit originally, but I've been in Seoul for 6 years. He extended his hand. Jade, she said, using her new name for the first time voluntarily. Just got here a few weeks ago. Let me guess. Married a Korean guy, family freaked out. Now you're trying to figure out how to survive? Adaeze laughed, a real laugh for the first time in weeks. Something like that. They talked for an hour. Marcus introduced her to other expats at the bar. Teachers, military personnel, entrepreneurs. People who understood what it meant to be foreign in a place that sometimes felt aggressively homogeneous. For the first time since arriving in Seoul, Adaeze felt like she could breathe. She didn't notice the 3 men enter the bar until one of them was standing directly behind her stool. You're her, he said in Korean accented English. Park Yunho's new wife. Adaeze's body went cold. She turned slowly to find 3 men in expensive casual clothes, their faces hard and assessing. The one who'd spoken was young, maybe mid-20s, with a kind of pretty boy looks that couldn't hide the violence in his eyes. I think you have me confused with someone else, she said evenly. No confusion. You're all over the underground networks. The African woman who married the Ice Prince. People are curious about you. Very curious. Marcus moved closer, his body language protective. Hey man, the lady said you've got the wrong person. Maybe move along. The young man ignored him. His attention fixed on Adaeze. I'm Lee Taemin. My family. We have complicated business with the Park family. I wanted to see for myself if the rumors were true. If Yunho really did buy himself a foreign bride. And now you've seen me, Adaeze said, her voice cold despite the fear crawling up her spine. Congratulations. The tour is over. I don't think so. Taemin reached for her arm. He never made contact. The bar door slammed open with enough force to crack the frame. Kim Jae-sung entered first, followed by 4 security personnel, and then, moving with the casual grace of a hunting predator, Yunho himself. The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. Yunho's eyes scanned the space, found Adaeze, and something in his expression, relief? Anger? Both. Made her breath catch. Then his gaze shifted to Taemin, and the relief vanished, replaced by something that made every person in the bar take an unconscious step back. Lee Taemin, Yunho said. His voice perfectly calm and absolutely terrifying. I believe you have your hand on something that belongs to me. Yunho sigh, Taemin said, but his confidence had evaporated. His hand dropped from near Adaeze's arm. I was just introducing myself to your lovely wife. And now you've been introduced. Step away from her. It wasn't a request. Taemin moved back, but his pride made him stupid. She was here alone. Unprotected. One might think you don't value your new acquisition very highly if you let her wander the streets like. Yunho moved. One moment he was standing by the door. The next, his hand was wrapped around Taemin's throat, slamming the younger man against the bar with enough force to rattle bottles. The violence was so sudden, so casual that Adaeze gasped. Listen carefully, Yunho said, his voice still eerily calm. My wife can go anywhere she pleases. She doesn't require my permission or my protection, though she'll have both regardless. What she requires is for insects like you to understand that touching her, threatening her, or even looking at her wrong will result in consequences. Do you understand the word, consequences? Taemin SSI. Taemin nodded as much as the grip on his throat allowed. Good. Now apologize to my wife and then leave this establishment. If I hear you've been anywhere near her again, I'll have a conversation with your father about the appropriate punishment for disrespecting Park family property. And trust me, your father values his business relationship with us far more than he values you. Yunho released him. Taemin stumbled back, gasping. His face red with humiliation and lack of oxygen. He muttered an apology in Korean and fled with his companions. The bar was silent. Yunho turned to Adaeze, and for the first time, she saw real emotion in his eyes. Anger, yes, but also fear. He'd been afraid for her. We're leaving, he said. Yunho, Now. The ride back to the penthouse was silent and suffocating. Kim Jae-sung drove while Yunho sat in the back with Adaeze. His body radiating tension. She wanted to explain, to defend herself, to argue, but something in his expression made her hold her tongue. They rode the private elevator to the penthouse. The moment the doors closed behind them, Yunho exploded. What the hell were you thinking? He didn't shout. Somehow his controlled fury was worse than shouting. You left the building without security, without informing anyone of your location, and ended up in a bar in Itaewon where anyone could have recognized you, hurt you, used you against me. I needed air. Adaeze shot back, her own anger rising. I needed to feel like a human being instead of a possession. You can't keep me locked in this apartment like I'm. Like you're what? Like you're valuable. Like you're important. Like you're the one thing that my enemies would love to use to get to me. Yunho stepped closer, his height forcing her to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. You want to know what would have happened if Taemin had taken you? If I hadn't tracked your phone and arrived in time. You tracked my phone. Of course I tracked your phone. You're my wife. He stopped, running his hand through his hair in frustration. You're the only thing in my life that I can't afford to lose. The admission hung in the air between them. Adaeze stared at him, this man who'd bought her like property, who'd married her out of strategic necessity, who maintained emotional distance with the dedication of a professional. This man who'd just admitted she was important. Then stop treating me like I'm something to be locked away, she said quietly. I'm not a possession, Yunho. I'm not a trophy or a strategic asset or a business acquisition. I'm a woman. And if you want me to survive in your world, if you want me to be strong enough to face the threats that come with your name, then you need to let me learn to fight. Let me breathe. Let me be something more than just Mrs. Park Yunho Seo. Yunho was silent for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he reached out and touched her face. His hand gentle despite the calluses she could feel. It was the first time he'd touched her since their wedding night. Peck. You terrify me, he said softly. Not because you're weak. Because you're so damn strong that you don't realize how dangerous that makes you. To my enemies. To yourself. To me. To you. His thumb brushed across her cheek. Since the moment you walked down that aisle with your head high and fire in your eyes, you've been destroying every wall I've built. And I don't know if I want to stop you. Adaeze's breath caught. This close, she could see that his eyes weren't empty at all. They were full of longing, of fear, of something that looked dangerously like need. So don't stop me, she whispered. Let me in, Yunho. Let me be your partner, not your prisoner. He leaned closer, his forehead almost touching hers. If I let you in, if I let myself feel what I'm starting to feel for you, I'll become the most dangerous version of myself. Because I'll do anything to protect you. Anything. And in my world, anything has no limits. Then protect me by trusting me. Teach me about your world instead of hiding me from it. Make me your equal, not your possession. For a heartbeat, she thought he might kiss her. His eyes dropped to her lips, and the air between them crackled with tension. Instead, he stepped back, the walls slamming back into place. Tomorrow you start training, he said. His voice once again controlled. Self-defense, situational awareness, the basics of who's who in Seoul's underground. If you're going to be my wife in public, you need to understand the game. But Jade. Yes. You ever leave this building without security again, and I'll personally ensure you can't sit comfortably for a week. Are we clear? Despite everything, Adaeze smiled. Was that a threat or a promise, Mr. Park? The corner of his mouth twitched. With me, Mrs. Seo, they're usually the same thing. He walked to his office and closed the door, leaving Adaeze standing in the living room, her heart racing and her mind spinning. Something had shifted tonight. The ice between them had cracked, and underneath, she'd glimpsed something hot, dangerous, and entirely too appealing. She was supposed to be surviving this marriage. She was starting to think she might actually want to stay. The dress was a weapon. Adaeze stood in front of her mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back. The gown was custom-made, a deep burgundy silk that hugged every curve before flowing into a dramatic train. The neckline was modest by Western standards but daring for a Korean formal event. Her natural hair had been styled into an elaborate updo with gold accessories woven through the coils. She looked powerful, regal, dangerous. She looked like a queen. Mr. Park is waiting, Kemi said softly from the doorway. Adaeze took a deep breath and walked to the living room. Yunho was standing by the window, dressed in a black tuxedo that made him look like every woman's fantasy and every man's nightmare. When he turned and saw her, he went completely still. For 5 full seconds he just stared. Will I do? Adaeze asked, her voice teasing despite her nerves. You'll do more than that, Yunho said, his voice rough. You'll be the most beautiful woman at the gala. Which means you'll also be the most talked about, the most scrutinized, and potentially the biggest target. Well, that's romantic. He crossed to her, and this time he didn't hesitate. He took her hand, brought it to his lips, and kissed her knuckles with old-world formality. You are extraordinary, Jade. And tonight, all of Seoul is going to see what I see every day. And what do you see? Trouble. His smile was small but genuine. Beautiful, intelligent, stubborn trouble that I don't know how to handle. Good. Keep it that way. In the car, Kim Jae-sung went over security protocols. Mrs. Seo, you'll stay within sight of either Mr. Park or myself at all times. If anyone makes you uncomfortable, you signal me like this. He demonstrated a subtle gesture. If there's an immediate threat, you get behind Mr. Park and stay behind him. Do not try to be heroic. What if I need to use the bathroom? Do I take a security detail into the stall with me? There will be female security in the bathroom, Kim Jae-sung said without a hint of humor. This isn't a game, Mrs. Seo. The Lee family will be at this event. After what happened with Taemin, tensions are high. We're expecting complications. Complications. That's a fun euphemism for what, exactly? For the fact that half the people at this gala want to destroy your husband, and they'll happily use you to do it, Kim Jae-sung said bluntly. So please, Mrs. Seo, follow the protocols. The gala was held at the Shilla Hotel, Seoul's most prestigious venue. The ballroom was a glittering display of wealth and power, crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains, women in designer gowns and men in tuxedos that cost more than most people's annual salaries. And every single eye turned to watch as Yunho and Adaeze entered. The whispers started immediately. Adaeze could feel them like insects crawling on her skin. She kept her head high, her hand resting lightly on Yunho's arm. Her expression serene despite the anxiety doing gymnastics in her stomach. "They're staring," she murmured. "Let them," Yunho said. "They've never seen anything like you. Let them stare and wonder and realize that you're completely out of their league." Yunho's mother approached, her expression carefully neutral. They'd met only once since the wedding, a stilted tea ceremony where Mrs. Park Sr. had made clear her disappointment in her son's choice of bride without ever explicitly saying so. "Yunho. Jade." Mrs. Park's use of her Korean name still felt foreign. "You look presentable." For Mrs. Park, that was practically a compliment. "Thank you, Mother," Yunho said with perfect formality. "Jade has been working hard with Professor Han. Her Korean is improving rapidly." "How fortunate." Mrs. Park's eyes swept over Adaeze with clinical assessment. "The Choi family is here. And the Lees. I trust you'll both conduct yourselves appropriately." "Always," Yunho said, but his hand tightened slightly on Adaeze's waist, a warning or reassurance she couldn't tell. The next 2 hours were a masterclass in social warfare. Adaeze was introduced to dozens of people whose names she'd never remember, all of whom smiled with their mouths while their eyes calculated her worth. She fielded intrusive questions about how she and Yunho met, through family business, whether she planned to have children soon. "That's rather personal, don't you think?" And how she was adjusting to Korean culture. "I'm learning something new every day, including how to politely tell people to mind their own business." Yunho stayed close, his presence both protective and possessive. She noticed how people's demeanor changed when addressing him, respectful but wary, like diplomats negotiating with a nuclear power. "You're doing well," he murmured during a brief moment alone. "Better than I expected. Did you think I'd embarrass you? Start speaking Yoruba and asking for pounded yam?" His lips twitched. "I thought you'd tell someone exactly what you thought of them. The fact that you're showing restraint is impressive." "Oh, I'm saving my honesty for when it'll have maximum impact. I'm strategic like that. I'm learning that about you." A commotion near the entrance made everyone turn. Lee Taemin had arrived with his father, Lee Jun-ho, head of the Lee Corporation and one of Seoul's most powerful criminal bosses. The older Lee was everything his son wasn't: composed, calculating, and genuinely dangerous behind his grandfather's smile. Taemin's eyes found Adaeze immediately, and even from across the room, she could see the hatred burning there. "Yunho," she started. "I see him." Yunho's voice had gone cold. "Stay close to me. Don't engage with him under any circumstances." But fate, or maybe just bad luck, had other plans. 30 minutes later, Adaeze excused herself to the restroom. Kim Jae-sung's female security officer, Agent Park, seriously, everyone was named Park, followed discreetly. The bathroom was empty except for one other woman touching up her makeup. Adaeze was washing her hands when 3 women entered. She recognized one from earlier, Minji, some chaebol heiress who'd made a pointed comment about exotic additions to Seoul's social scene. "Oh, it's the African wife," Minji said in Korean, clearly not expecting Adaeze to understand. "I heard Park Yunho bought her to pay off some debt. Can you imagine? Being so desperate you'd marry into the Park family." The other women laughed. Adaeze dried her hands slowly, her face impassive. "I heard she doesn't even speak Korean properly," another woman added. "How is she supposed to fulfill her duties as a Park wife when she can't even communicate?" "Maybe communication isn't what she was purchased for," Minji said with a cruel smile. "After all, you don't need to speak Korean in the bedroom." Adaeze turned to face them, and something in her expression made all 3 women step back. "You know what's funny?" Adaeze said in perfect, Professor Han taught Korean. "I understood every word you just said. Wanna know what else is funny?" I'm wearing a dress that costs more than your car, married to a man who could destroy your family with a phone call, and I'm from a culture that invented the art of cutting someone down with words. So please, Minji SSI, continue. Tell me more about my duties. I'm fascinated by your expertise on my marriage. Minji's face went pale, then red. How dare you? How dare I what? Defend myself. Speak Korean. Exist in your precious soul. Let me make something very clear. I didn't ask to be here. I didn't ask to marry Park Yunho. But I'm here now, and I'm his wife, which means I'm protected by the same power that makes you all walk on eggshells around him. So you can whisper behind my back all you want, but if you say one more word to my face, I'll make sure everyone at this gala knows exactly what kind of person you are. She walked past the stunned women, Agent Park falling into step behind her, a small smile on the security officer's face. That was satisfying to watch, Mrs. Seo, Agent Park murmured. That was me showing restraint. In Lagos, I'd have done much worse. They were halfway back to the ballroom when the lights went out. Not gradually, not flickering. One moment the hallway was bright. The next, complete darkness and the sound of screams from the ballroom. Agent Park's hand immediately grabbed Adaeze's arm. Stay with me. Don't move. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in eerie red. More screams, the sound of glass shattering, and then, cutting through the chaos, gunshots. Down! Agent Park shoved Adaeze against the wall, her body shielding Adaeze as more shots rang out. This wasn't a power outage. This was an attack. Adaeze's training from the past weeks kicked in. Yunho had insisted she learn basic self-defense and crisis protocols. Rule 1. In an attack, find cover. Rule 2. Locate your primary protector. Rule 3. Survive by any means necessary. We need to get to Mr. Park, Adaeze said, her voice surprisingly steady despite her racing heart. Negative. Protocol is to get you to the safe room. Protocol is about to get us both killed if we don't move. Those gunshots are coming from the ballroom. Yunho is in the ballroom. We go to him now. Agent Park hesitated for only a second before nodding. They moved quickly through the chaos, Agent Park's gun drawn, her body language professional and deadly. They reached the ballroom entrance to find it had become a war zone. Tables were overturned. Guests were screaming, running for exits. And in the center of it all, Park Yunho stood like the eye of a hurricane, surrounded by his security team, facing off against a group of armed men wearing masks. But it was the man without a mask that made Adaeze's blood run cold. Lee Junho stood calmly in the chaos, a gun in his hand, pointed directly at Yunho. This is about respect, Park, Lee Junho said, his voice carrying despite the screams. You humiliated my son. You've been moving into territory that doesn't belong to you. Tonight, Seoul learns that the Ice Prince can bleed. You attack me at a charity gala? Yunho's voice was eerily calm. In front of witnesses. You've lost your mind, Lee. No witnesses will talk. Not after they see what happens to those who disrespect my family. Adaeze saw it before anyone else did. One of Lee's men, positioned behind a column, had a clear shot at Yunho's back. Yunho's security was focused on the men in front. No one saw the threat. No one but Adaeze. She didn't think. Didn't plan. Didn't consider the consequences. Ran. Jade, no. Agent Park's shout was lost in the chaos. Adaeze grabbed a champagne bottle from a fallen table as she ran, her heels abandoned somewhere in her sprint. The gunman saw her at the last second, swinging his weapon toward her, but she was faster. She smashed the bottle against the column with all her strength, creating a jagged weapon, and drove it toward his gun hand. The man screamed. The gun fell. And suddenly, every eye in the room was on her, including Yunho's. The expression on his face was beyond description. Terror, fury, and something that looked like pride all mixed together. He moved with inhuman speed, closing the distance between them, his body covering hers as more shots rang out. His security team erupted into action. Kim Jae-sung and his men returned fire with brutal efficiency. Lee Jun-ho's men fell back, realizing they'd lost the element of surprise. In less than 2 minutes it was over. Lee's men were either dead, wounded, or fleeing, and Lee Jun-ho himself had vanished in the chaos. The police sirens were already wailing in the distance. Yunho pulled Adaeze behind an overturned table, his hands running over her body, checking for injuries. "Are you hurt? Did they touch you?" "Jade, answer me." "I'm fine. I'm fine, Yunho." He kissed her. Not gently. Not tentatively. He kissed her like he was drowning and she was air, his hands cupping her face with desperate intensity. Adaeze gasped against his mouth, and he deepened the kiss, pouring months of suppressed emotion into that single moment. When he finally pulled back, his forehead rested against hers, his breathing ragged. "You could have died," he whispered. "You could have died saving me and I." His voice cracked. "I can't lose you, Jade. I can't." "Then don't," she whispered back. "Don't lose me. Keep me. Choose me. Not because of debt or obligation, but because you want me." "Want you?" His laugh was shaky. "I'm obsessed with you. Consumed by you. From the moment you walked down that aisle with fire in your eyes, I've been losing the battle to keep you at a distance. And tonight, watching you risk your life for mine. You've destroyed me completely, Jade Seo. You've made me feel things I swore I'd never feel. And God help us both, but I'm done fighting it." "Then don't fight it. Let me in, Yunho. All the way in." He kissed her again, softer this time but no less intense. Around them, his security team was securing the scene, tending to the wounded, dealing with the authorities. But in their small bubble behind the overturned table, surrounded by the wreckage of the gala, Jade and Yunho were lost in each other. When they finally emerged, Jade's dress was torn, her hair was falling from its elaborate style, and her bare feet were cut from running across broken glass. She looked like she'd been through a war. She looked magnificent. Kim Jae-sung approached, his expression unreadable. "Mrs. Seo, that was either the bravest or the most foolish thing I've ever witnessed. Can it be both?" Despite everything, he smiled. "Mr. Park, the police commissioner, is here. He needs a statement." "Later," Yunho said, not taking his eyes off Jade. "First, we get my wife medical attention and home safely." "Yunho, I'm fine. You're bleeding, you're barefoot, and you just fought off an armed gunman with a champagne bottle. You're many things, but fine isn't one of them." He swept her into his arms, ignoring her protests, and carried her toward the exit. The press was waiting outside, cameras flashing like machine gun fire. Tomorrow, the headlines would be spectacular. Ice Prince's African wife fights off assassin at charity gala. Park Yunho's bride. From Lagos to Seoul's underground war. But Jade didn't care about the headlines. She didn't care about what Seoul society would say, or how the underground would react, or any of it. Because Yunho was looking at her like she was the only person in the world who mattered. And for the first time since her forced marriage, Jade realized she wasn't looking for an escape anymore. She was exactly where she wanted to be. Back at the penthouse, Yunho insisted on personally cleaning and bandaging her feet despite her protests. They sat in his bathroom. She'd never been in his private space before, and he knelt before her, his touch gentle as he cleaned the cuts. "You're going to have scars," he said softly. "Scars are just proof you survived something that tried to destroy you." He looked up at her, his eyes intense. "The Lee family will retaliate. Tonight wasn't the end. It was the beginning. You've put yourself in the center of a war, Jade. I was already in the center of it the moment I married you. Tonight I just made my position clear. I'm not a bystander in your life, Yunho. I'm not decoration or a strategic asset. I'm your partner. Your equal. And if people want to come for you, they'll have to go through me first. That's what terrifies me. Then be terrified. But don't ask me to hide. Don't ask me to be less than I am to make your life easier. 'Cause I can't do that. I won't." Yunho finished bandaging her feet and stood, pulling her up with him. They were standing so close she could feel his heartbeat. "I have something to tell you," he said. "Something I should have said weeks ago." "What?" "The debt. Your father's debt. I forgave it the day after we married." Jade froze. "What?" "The marriage contract was binding regardless of the debt. I kept the debt active because I was afraid if you knew you were free you'd leave. That you'd realize you didn't have to stay married to me. And you'd run back to Lagos and I'd never see you again." His jaw tightened. "It was manipulative and wrong, and I'm not asking for forgiveness. But I need you to know that you're not trapped here, Jade. You never were. You can leave any time you want. I'll have the marriage annulled, set you up financially, make sure." She kissed him. It was her turn to initiate, her turn to pour everything she felt into the contact. When she pulled back, his eyes were wide with surprise. "I'm not leaving," she said firmly. "Not because of debt, not because of obligation. I'm staying because I choose to. Because somewhere between hating you and fighting with you and learning who you are beneath all the ice, I started to care. I started to want us to be real." "Jade, I'm not saying I love you. Not yet. I don't know if what I'm feeling is love or Stockholm Syndrome, or just really intense attraction to a dangerous man with control issues." She smiled. "But I know I'm not leaving. I know I want to see where this goes. I know that when I saw that gun pointed at you tonight, the idea of you dying made me reckless, made me fearless, made me realize that you've become important to me." Yunho's arms came around her, pulling her close. "You're the most extraordinary woman I've ever met. Brave and brilliant and so damn stubborn that I don't know whether to lock you in a tower or give you an army and watch you conquer the world. How about you do neither and just trust me to stand beside you?" "I can do that." He paused. "Actually, that's a lie. Trusting people isn't exactly my strength. But for you, I'll try. I'll fail sometimes, I'll be overprotective and controlling and impossible, but I'll try. That's all I ask." They stood like that for a long moment, wrapped in each other, the chaos of the night finally settling into something that felt like peace. "Yunho," Jade murmured against his chest. "Yes. Tomorrow I want you to teach me everything. Every detail of your business, every player in Seoul's underground, every threat and ally. If I'm going to be your partner, I need to understand the game." "Tomorrow," he agreed. "But tonight I just want to hold you and be grateful you're alive. I can live with that." He carried her to her room. She suspected she'd be moving into his soon, but they were taking things one step at a time, and stayed with her until she fell asleep, his hand holding hers, his presence a silent promise. The war with the Lee family was just beginning. Seoul's underground would be buzzing with news of the gala attack and Mrs. Park Yunho Seo's unexpected combat skills. Their lives were about to get significantly more complicated and dangerous. But as Jade drifted off to sleep, feeling safe despite everything, she realized something important. She wasn't afraid of the danger. She was afraid of how much she was starting to care about the man who'd bought her, kept her, and was now slowly, inevitably winning her heart. The newspapers called it the Shilla Hotel incident. The underground called it the night the Ice Prince found his fire. Within 48 hours of the gala attack, 3 things happened. First, Lee Junho went into hiding. His assets mysteriously frozen. His allies suddenly unavailable to take his calls. Second, surveillance footage of Jade fighting off the gunman went viral across Seoul's underground networks. Grainy, dramatic, and turning her into an instant legend. Third, Yunho called a meeting of Seoul's 5 major crime families, and for the first time ever, he invited his wife to attend. "Absolutely not," Kim Jae-sung said when Yunho announced the plan. "Mrs. Seo attending the council meeting is non-negotiable," Yunho finished. "Jade proved at the gala that she's not just my wife. She's my partner. The families need to see that. They need to understand that attacking her is the same as attacking me. They'll see it as weakness," Kim argued. "A man who brings his wife to a council meeting is a man who's lost his edge." Or, Jade interjected from where she sat reviewing documents Yunho had given her. Detailed dossiers on every major player in Seoul's criminal hierarchy. They'll see a man confident enough in his power that he doesn't need to hide his wife away. A man whose wife is strong enough to sit at the table with murderers and thieves and not flinch. Kim looked at her, then at Yunho, then sighed. You're both insane. You deserve each other. Thank you, they said in unison. The council meeting was held in a private room at one of Yunho's legitimate businesses, a high-end restaurant in Gangnam that closed early for private events that everyone knew better than to question. Jade dressed strategically. A tailored black suit that was all business, her natural hair pulled back in a sleek bun, minimal jewelry except for her wedding ring and diamond earrings that Yunho had given her that morning. Armor, he'd said when presenting the earrings. In our world, diamonds aren't just pretty. They're a statement of power. Then I'll wear them like a general wears medals. In the car, Yunho went over the players. Choi Dae-young runs the port operations. He's old school, respects tradition, will be skeptical of you but won't show open hostility. Han Sung-min controls entertainment and gambling, nightclubs, casinos, the pleasure district. He's progressive, ambitious, and will either try to befriend you or undermine you. Song Ji-woo handles the financial side. Money laundering, investment fronts. She's brilliant, ruthless, and the only other woman who's ever sat at this table. What about the Lees? The Lees are done. After the gala stunt, I've been systematically dismantling their operation. Lee Junho is in hiding in Busan, and his son Taemin is currently being educated about the consequences of disrespecting Park family members. The way Yunho said educated made Jade's stomach clench. She didn't ask for details. And the fifth family. Kim Min-ho. No relation to our Kim Jae-sung. He runs import-export, which is a polite way of saying smuggling. Weapons, pharmaceuticals, occasionally people. Though I've made it clear that human trafficking is off-limits in any Park-affiliated territory. He's dangerous, unpredictable, and he's been testing boundaries lately. So basically, I'm walking into a room with 4 of the most powerful criminals in Seoul, and they're all going to be judging whether I'm an asset or a liability to you. Yes. Fun. Yunho took her hand. Jade, you don't have to do this. I can still. I'm doing this. We're partners, remember? Besides, I didn't fight off an assassin with a champagne bottle just to hide behind you now. His grip tightened. If anyone disrespects you, if anyone makes you uncomfortable, I'll handle it. I'm Nigerian, Yunho. I was raised by a grandmother who could verbally eviscerate corrupt politicians and make them thank her for the privilege. I can handle some gangsters. The meeting room was exactly what Jade expected. Dark wood, expensive leather chairs, the smell of cigar smoke and expensive whiskey. 4 faces turned as Yunho and Jade entered, and she felt the weight of their assessment like physical pressure. Yunho didn't ask permission. He simply pulled out a chair at the head of the table for Jade, positioned right beside his own, and sat down. Gentlemen, Song-sai, thank you for coming, Yunho began. I believe most of you have heard about the incident at the Shilla Hotel. Tonight, I want to make some things crystal clear about the new structure of Park family operations. New structure. Choi Dae-young, the older man with silver hair and hard eyes, leaned back in his chair. Park, we've operated under the same agreements for a decade. What changes are you proposing? Not proposing. Implementing. Yunho's voice was ice. The attack on me at the gala was an attack on all of us. It demonstrated that some parties, he didn't name the Lees but everyone knew, have forgotten the rules that keep Seoul from descending into open warfare. It also demonstrated something else. He looked at Jade and she took her cue. It demonstrated, Jade said, her voice clear and confident despite her racing heart, that the Park family structure is evolving. I'm not just Park Yunho's wife. I'm his partner in all business operations. Which means moving forward, any agreements you have with my husband will be agreements you have with both of us. The silence was profound. Han Sung-min, a handsome man in his 40s with the polished charm of a game show host, laughed. Shirley laughed. Park, you're joking. You're bringing your wife into council operations. Have you lost your mind? Watch your tone, Yunho said softly, and the temperature in the room dropped. And choose your next words very carefully. Song Ji-woo, the only other woman in the room, studied Jade with sharp interest. She was probably in her 50s, dressed in an elegant blue suit, with a kind of face that revealed nothing. Mrs. Park, what exactly is your role going to be? Jade met her gaze steadily. Intelligence gathering and analysis, strategic planning, and representing Park family interests in situations where my husband's presence would be unnecessarily intimidating. Meaning there are opportunities that require a softer approach. Businesses that won't deal with obvious criminal elements but will happily work with a respectable businessman's wife. Politicians who need a friendly face and plausible deniability. I have a degree in international business from Lagos Business School and spent 2 years in Seoul doing my MBA before my marriage. I'm not some trophy wife who doesn't understand the game. You're African, Kim Min-ho said bluntly. He was younger than the others, maybe early 30s, with a kind of dangerous pretty boy looks that hid a vicious streak. Seoul is traditional. You'll be discriminated against, dismissed, underestimated. Good, Jade said simply. Let them underestimate me. It'll make my job easier. Kim Min-ho's eyebrows rose. I think I like her, Park. You don't have to like her, Yunho said. You have to respect her. And more importantly, you have to understand that anyone who threatens her threatens me. The Lees learned that lesson. I'd prefer not to have to teach it again. The Lees were fools, Choi Daeng said. Attacking you at a charity gala in front of witnesses. Junho's always been more pride than sense. But Park, bringing family into business operations. It creates vulnerabilities. Or it creates redundancies. Song Ji-woo interjected thoughtfully. If something happened to you, Yunho, your entire operation would be thrown into chaos. Power vacuum, infighting, potential hostile takeovers. But if your wife is integrated into operations, knows the business, has established relationships. She smiled. Then succession becomes simpler. Interesting strategy. It's not strategy, Yunho said, and his hand found Jade's under the table. It's reality. Jade is my wife. She's proven her courage, her intelligence, and her loyalty. She's earned her place at this table, just as each of you earned yours. By fighting and clawing and sometimes killing, Han Sung-min said. No offense to Mrs. Park, but wielding a champagne bottle against one gunman hardly qualifies. I grew up in Lagos, Jade interrupted. In a country where corruption isn't a crime, it's a business model. Where violence is so common we don't even make the news unless the body count is exceptional. Where a woman learns early that she's either a victim or a survivor. And I decided a long time ago which one I'd be. You want to test me? Fine. Give me a problem to solve. Give me a business challenge. Give me anything except your condescension, and I'll show you exactly what I'm capable of. Han Sung-min leaned forward, interested now. All right. I have a problem. One of my biggest nightclubs is being targeted by a new gang trying to move into Gangnam. They're young, aggressive, and they've already sent 3 of my people to the hospital. I can't respond with full force without starting a war that'll bring police attention we don't need. What would you do, Mrs. Park? Jade didn't hesitate. I'd identify their leader and exploit his weakness. Every gang has a hierarchy, and every leader has something he cares about more than territory. Find out what that is, girlfriend, family, reputation, whatever. And make it clear that escalation will cost him more than he can afford. If that doesn't work, undermine his leadership from within. Young gangs are unstable. Turn his lieutenants against him. Offer them better deals. Create internal chaos. Let them tear themselves apart while you watch from a distance. And if they call your bluff, then you make an example. Publicly, painfully. And with enough documentation that every other gang in Seoul gets the message. But you do it surgically. Target only the leader and his core supporters. Leave room for the rest to surrender or disappear. Violence should be a last resort, but when it's necessary, it should be definitive. The room was silent. That's... Han Sung-min looked genuinely impressed. That's actually a solid strategy. It's a Lego strategy, Jade said. Where I'm from, we learn early that brain beats brawn every time. Song Ji-woo smiled. I think I'm going to enjoy having another woman at this table. Welcome to the council, Mrs. Park. One by one, the others nodded their acceptance. Even Choi Dae-young, though his expression suggested he was still reserving judgment. The meeting continued for another 2 hours. They discussed territory agreements, profit sharing, upcoming opportunities, and potential threats. Jade mostly listened, absorbing information, asking occasional questions that made it clear she was processing everything with sharp intelligence. When it finally ended, Yunho and Jade walked to their car in silence. Kim Jae-sung drove while they sat in the back, both processing what had just happened. You were magnificent, Yunho said finally. I was terrified. You didn't show it. Not even for a second. Do you know what they're calling you already? I'm afraid to ask. The Dark Queen. He smiled. Lagos's gift to Seoul's underground. The woman who married the Ice Prince and melted his heart. That's dramatic. This is Korea. Everything is dramatic. He pulled her close. But they're not wrong. You have melted something in me, Jade. Something I thought was frozen permanently. She rested her head on his shoulder. What happens now? With the Lees? Lee Jun-ho will be dealt with. Quietly, permanently, and in a way that sends the right message. His son Taemin will be given a choice, exile or burial. Most likely he'll choose exile. And if he doesn't, then he's stupider than I thought. Yunho's voice was matter-of-fact. This was his world, where life and death were calculated business decisions. Jade should have been horrified, should have been planning her escape, appalled by the casual discussion of murder. Instead, she found herself accepting it. This was the world she'd married into. The world she'd chosen to stay in. If she was going to be Yunho's partner, she couldn't afford moral squeamishness. Teach me, she said suddenly. Teach you what? Everything. How to use a gun. How to read people. How to identify threats. How to make the hard decisions. If I'm going to be the Dark Queen, I need to deserve the title. Yunho pulled back to look at her. Jade, once you cross certain lines, I'm already across them. The moment I married you, the moment I attended that council meeting, the moment I decided to stay. I'm all in, Yunho. No more half measures. No more pretending I can keep one foot in my old life. I'm yours. Your wife, your partner, your equal. So teach me how to survive in your world. Our world, he corrected. It's our world now. Then teach me how to rule it. He kissed her, deep and possessive, and when they broke apart, his eyes held a promise and a warning. Once I start, there's no going back. Good. I'm done looking back. The next 6 months were a transformation. Jade trained every morning with Kim Jae-sung and his security team. Hand-to-hand combat, weapons proficiency, tactical thinking. She was never going to be their physical equal, but she learned how to use her size and speed to her advantage, how to find weaknesses, how to stay alive long enough for help to arrive. She took over portions of Yunho's legitimate businesses, using her international business degree and her natural intelligence to identify opportunities that the male-dominated hierarchy had missed. Within 3 months, she'd increased profits on their shipping operations by 15% just by renegotiating contracts and finding more efficient routes. She attended social events, gallery openings, charity auctions, business dinners, and built her own network of information sources. Wives of politicians, mistresses of businessmen, people who were underestimated and overlooked but who saw and heard everything. Jade cultivated them carefully, offering friendship and favors, building a web of intelligence that proved invaluable. And she learned the underground's rhythm. Who hated who? Which alliances were strong and which were paper-thin? where the police could be bought and where they couldn't. She became fluent in Korean, mastering not just the language but the subtle social cues that could make or break a negotiation. Seoul's underground, which had initially dismissed her as Yunho's exotic trophy, began to realize she was something else entirely. She was dangerous. "You're a natural," Song Ji-woo told her over coffee one afternoon. The two women had developed an unexpected friendship, bonding over being the only females in a violently masculine world. "I've been in this life for 30 years, and I've never seen someone adapt this quickly." "I'm motivated," Jade said simply. "And I had good training." "Your grandmother." Jade had told Ji-woo about her grandmother Adaeze, the woman who'd raised her, who'd taught her that survival required both steel and silk. She used to say that women in a man's world have to be twice as smart and 3 times as ruthless just to be considered equal. "So I aim for 4 times as ruthless and don't worry about being liked." "Smart woman, your grandmother." She was. I wish she could have met Yunho. She'd have approved of him, I think. She always said I needed a man who could handle me. "And can he handle you?" Jade smiled. "We handle each other. That's why it works." But it wasn't all strategy sessions and power plays. Slowly, carefully, Jade and Yunho were building something real. Date nights where they pretended to be normal. Movies, restaurants, late-night walks along the Han River. Mornings where they cooked breakfast together and argued about everything from kimchi recipes to K-drama plot holes. Quiet evenings where they simply existed in the same space, comfortable and content. The Ice Prince was melting. And the defiant bride was falling in love. It happened so gradually that Jade didn't notice until one morning when she woke up in Yunho's bed. They'd stopped maintaining separate rooms months ago, and realized she was happy. Genuinely, surprisingly, impossibly happy. "What are you thinking?" Yunho murmured, his arm tightening around her waist. "That I never expected this. When I walked down that aisle I thought I was entering hell. Instead I found this, us." He turned her to face him, his hand cupping her cheek. "I love you, Jade. I've loved you for months now, but I was afraid to say it. Afraid you'd think it was manipulation or Stockholm Syndrome or—" "I love you too," she interrupted. "I think I have for a while now. I just needed time to trust it. To trust that this is real. It's real. You're the realest thing in my life. Everything else, the business, the power, the respect, it's all just noise. But you're what matters." They made love slowly, tenderly, like they had all the time in the world. No urgency, no desperation. Just two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances and refused to let go. Afterward, as they lay tangled together, Yunho said, "I have something to tell you." Jade's contentment flickered with worry. "That sounds ominous." "It's not bad. At least, I hope you won't think it's bad." He took a breath. "I want to change how we operate. Song Ji-woo and I have been discussing ways to transition some of our businesses toward legitimacy. Not all of them, that's not realistic, but the ones where we can. I want to build something that won't destroy us, that we can pass down without condemning the next generation to this life." "Yunho, that's huge. The other families will see it as weakness. Let them. I'm tired of living in a world where the only certainty is violence. I'm tired of wondering when someone will finally succeed in killing me. I'm tired of risking your life because of choices I made before I knew you existed." His eyes were intense. "I want to build a future with you, Jade. Real one. Maybe even—" He hesitated. "Maybe even with children someday. But I can't bring children into this world the way it is now." Jade's heart stuttered. Children. She hadn't let herself think about children. Hadn't considered that their relationship could evolve into something that permanent. "You want kids. With me. I want everything with you. Kids, a future, a life that's more than just survival. I know it's complicated." "It's not complicated." She kissed him softly. "It's terrifying and wonderful, and I want it too. All of it. But Yunho, transitioning to legitimacy. That's going to take years. Maybe decades. And there will be people who resist, who see it as betrayal. I know. Which is why I need you beside me. Not just as my wife but as my co-strategist. Song Ji-woo has agreed to help facilitate the financial transitions. Kim Jae-sung will handle security during the vulnerable phases. But I need your intelligence, your outsider perspective, your ability to see solutions that I'm too entrenched to recognize. You're asking me to help you rebuild your entire empire. I'm asking you to help me build our empire. One that honors who we are but doesn't require us to sacrifice our humanity. Jade was quiet for a long moment, thinking. This was bigger than anything she'd imagined. Transforming Seoul's underground wasn't just dangerous. It was nearly impossible. But if anyone could do it. All right, she said finally. But we do it smart. We do it slowly. And we protect ourselves every step of the way. Agreed. Agreed. They sealed the promise with another kiss, neither of them knowing that fate was about to give them both the greatest motivation and the biggest complication. 2 months later, Jade stared at the pregnancy test in her hand, her heart racing. Positive. She was pregnant. She'd been feeling off for weeks. Nausea, exhaustion, and unusual sensitivity to smells. She'd chalked it up to stress from a particularly complicated business negotiation. But when her period was 2 weeks late, she'd finally taken a test. Now she stood in the bathroom, staring at 2 pink lines that changed everything. She found Yunho in his office, reviewing shipping manifests. He looked up when she entered, his expression immediately concerned. Jade, what's wrong? She handed him the test without a word. For a long moment he just stared at it. Then his eyes rose to meet hers, and she saw shock, fear, and joy all warring in his expression. We're pregnant. About 8 weeks, I think. Yunho set the test down carefully, as if it might explode, and crossed to her. His hands framed her face, his eyes searching hers. How do you feel about this? Terrified, excited, worried, happy. All of it at once. Me too. He pulled her close, his hands playing protectively over her still flat stomach. I know we talked about children eventually, but I didn't expect. Neither did I. But Yunho, we're bringing a baby into a world where people tried to kill us 6 months ago. Where we're trying to restructure an entire criminal empire. Where that baby will be the most protected, most loved, most wanted child in Seoul. Yunho interrupted firmly. Yes, our world is dangerous. Yes, there are people who'd use our child against us. But Jade will handle it. Together. Like we handle everything. You're not angry. Angry. He laughed, the sound shaky. I'm overwhelmed. I'm terrified I'll be a terrible father. But angry. Never. This baby is proof that something good can come from even the darkest circumstances. We started as strangers, as enemies even. And now we're creating life together. That's not something to be angry about. That's a miracle. Jade felt tears spilling down her cheeks. Hormones probably, but also relief. We're really doing this. We're really doing this. You, me, and this little one. He kissed her forehead, then her lips, then knelt and pressed a kiss to her stomach. Hello in there. I'm your dad. I'm probably going to make a lot of mistakes, but I promise I'll love you and protect you with everything I have. Jade ran her fingers through his hair, overwhelmed with emotion. We need to accelerate our plans. The legitimacy transition, we need to move faster. I won't raise our child in constant danger. Agreed. Yunho stood, his expression shifting from tender to strategic. I'll call an emergency council meeting. We'll announce the pregnancy and make it clear that anyone who threatens my family will face consequences that make the Lee situation look merciful. Yunho, maybe we should wait to announce. No. The underground runs on information. If we try to hide it, someone will find out and assume we're weak or ashamed. We announce it on our terms, from a position of strength. We make it clear that this baby is the future of the Park family, and the future is protected. The council meeting 3 days later was tense. Jade wore a loose blouse that hid her small bump, though at 8 weeks, there wasn't much to hide. But the way Yunho's hand rested protectively on her lower back made their news obvious before he even spoke. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," Yunho began. "I have 2 announcements. First, Jade and I are expecting our first child." The room erupted. Song Ji-woo smiled genuinely. Choi-ding looked shocked. Han Sung-min looked calculating. Kim Min-ho's expression was unreadable. "Congratulations," Song Ji-woo said warmly. "This is wonderful news." "Second announcement," Yunho continued. "In light of this development, I'm accelerating my timeline for transitioning Park family operations toward legitimacy. Over the next 5 years, we'll be divesting from high-risk ventures and investing in legal enterprises. I'm not asking for permission, this is happening. But I am offering partnerships to anyone who wants to transition with us." "You're going soft," Kim Min-ho said flatly. "Having a baby has made you weak." The temperature in the room plummeted. Yunho's expression went from human to predator in an instant. "Choose your next words very carefully, Kim. I'm just stating facts. You're willing to throw away decades of infrastructure, profitable operations, and hard-won territory because you've decided to play house with your wife. That's weakness." Jade stood, placing a hand on Yunho's arm before he could respond. "Mr. Kim, may I address this?" Kim Min-ho's smirk was condescending. "By all means, Mrs. Park. Enlighten us." "You're confusing weakness with strategy," Jade said, her voice calm but edged with steel. "The underground operates on a principle of constant threat. Maintain power through fear, through violence, through the knowledge that you're willing to destroy anyone who challenges you. It works, but it's exhausting. It's unsustainable. And most importantly, it makes you predictable." Predictable. Every gang, every family, every organization operates the same way. Which means law enforcement knows exactly how to target you. Politicians know exactly how to manipulate you. Rivals know exactly how to challenge you. You're all playing the same game with the same rules, and eventually everyone loses. She walked around the table, commanding attention. What Yunho is proposing isn't weakness. It's evolution. Legitimate businesses provide cover, create political connections, generate clean money that doesn't require constant laundering. They make you untouchable in ways that violence never can. Because it's easy to arrest a gangster. It's much harder to arrest a respected businessman who donates to charities and employs thousands of people. And when the other families attack us during this transition, Kim challenged, when they see us going soft and decide to take our territory, then they'll discover that legitimate doesn't mean defenseless, Yunho said quietly. I'm transitioning operations, not disbanding security. Anyone who mistakes our strategic evolution for weakness will learn the same lesson the Lees learned. Permanently. This is about more than just the baby, Song Ji-woo said thoughtfully. You've been planning this for a while. Jade and I have been planning it for months, Yunho confirmed. The baby accelerated the timeline, but the strategy was already in motion. Seoul's underground is changing. We can change with it and thrive, or we can resist and eventually be destroyed by law enforcement, political pressure, or each other. I'm choosing to thrive. And those of us who prefer the old ways, leading us, are welcome to continue operating independently, Yunho said. I'm not trying to control anyone else's choices. But Park family operations are transitioning. Anyone who wants to maintain our current agreements will need to adapt accordingly. The meeting continued for another hour, with arguments, negotiations, and carefully worded threats. In the end, Song Ji-woo agreed to full partnership in the transition. Choi Dae-young agreed to partial transition with maintained independence in certain operations. Han Sung-min remained non-committal but didn't openly resist. Kim Min-ho walked out without agreeing to anything, which everyone understood as a declaration of future problems. He's going to be trouble, Kim Jae-sung said after the meeting ended. Let him try, Jade said firmly. We'll be ready. But being ready and being safe were two different things. 3 months into her pregnancy, Jade was attending a charity luncheon, maintaining her social presence despite her growing belly, when her security detail received an urgent call. Kim Min-ho had made his move, attacking one of Park's newly legitimate shipping warehouses with enough violence to make the evening news. Yunho's response was immediate and brutal. Within 24 hours, Kim Min-ho's operations were in chaos. His bank accounts frozen. His associates either arrested or gone into hiding. The message was clear. Transitioning to legitimacy didn't make the Parks weak. It made them stronger because now they had both legal and illegal tools at their disposal. Kim Min-ho himself was found 3 days later, beaten but alive, with a message carved into his chest. The future is protected. The underground got the message. No one threatened Park Yunho's family. Not anymore. Jade's pregnancy progressed. Morning sickness gave way to energy and glowing skin. Her belly grew, and Seoul society watched with fascination as the Dark Queen became a mother-to-be. She handled business until her 8th month, only stepping back when Yunho absolutely insisted. "You're brilliant and terrifying, and I love you," he said one evening as they prepared the nursery together. "But you're 8 months pregnant and still trying to negotiate shipping contracts. Even you have limits, my love." "Fine," she grumbled, but she was secretly relieved. The pregnancy had been harder than she'd admitted, and the idea of slowing down, of focusing on preparing for their daughter, they were having a girl, was appealing. They'd decided to name her Mina, a name that worked in both Korean and English, that honored both her parents' cultures. When Jade's water broke at 38 weeks, Yunho transformed into someone she'd never seen before. Completely, utterly panicked. "Hospital. We need car, where's the Kim? Kim Jae-sung. We need." "Yunho," Jade said calmly, despite the contraction making her breathe carefully. "We have time. The hospital is 20 minutes away. Breathe." "I'm breathing." "You breathe. Should you be breathing differently? What did the classes say about breathing?" Despite the pain, Jade laughed. The Ice Prince, Seoul's most feared crime lord, was panicking over childbirth. 14 hours later, Mina Park Seo entered the world screaming her displeasure at the bright lights and cold air. The moment the nurse placed her in Jade's arms, the world shifted on its axis. She was perfect, tiny and wrinkled and absolutely perfect, with a shock of dark hair and skin that was a beautiful blend of both her parents. "Hello, baby girl," Jade whispered, tears streaming down her face. "We've been waiting for you." Yunho stood beside the bed, staring at his daughter with an expression of such vulnerable wonder that Jade's heart ached. Carefully, she placed Mina in his arms. "Support her head," she instructed unnecessarily. They'd practiced with dolls. Yunho cradled his daughter like she was made of glass, his eyes never leaving her face. "Hi, Mina. I'm your dad. I'm going to make so many mistakes, but I promise I'll always protect you. Always love you. You're the best thing I've ever done." Watching her husband, the man who'd bought her, controlled her, slowly won her heart, hold their daughter with such tender reverence, Jade knew something with absolute certainty. They'd built something beautiful from something broken. And they were just getting started. Mina Park Seo was 2 years old when she proved she was her mother's daughter. It happened at a family gathering, one of the legitimate social events that now made up most of the Park family's public life. The transition to legitimacy was progressing ahead of schedule. 3 years of careful maneuvering had transformed Park Industries from a criminal enterprise with legitimate fronts into a mostly legitimate conglomerate with carefully hidden criminal elements. Yunho was networking with politicians. Real politicians now, not the corrupt ones on payroll, while Jade chatted with the wives of Seoul's business elite. Mina was supposed to be with her nanny in the children's play area. Instead, she marched into the main ballroom, dragging a boy who looked about 10 years old by his hand. "Mama," Mina announced in her adorable mix of Korean and English. She was growing up truly bilingual. "This boy said you're not pretty because your skin is dark. I told him you're the most beautiful mama in the world and he's stupid. He said I'm lying. So I hit him." The ballroom went silent. The boy's mother gasped in horror. "Mina hit Juno." Jade looked at her daughter, tiny, fierce, with Yunho's sharp features and Jade's defiant eyes, and worked very hard not to smile. Mina, we don't hit people because they say ignorant things. You said ignorant people need education or consequences, Mina replied with perfect toddler logic. I educated him by explaining you're beautiful. He stayed ignorant. So consequences. Where's your nanny? She was busy. I can take care of myself. Yunho had crossed the room, trying unsuccessfully to hide his pride. Mina apologized to Juno. Why? He was mean about Mama. Because we use words first, violence second. Remember. Mina considered this with the seriousness of a tiny general. Then she turned to Juno. I'm sorry I hit you. Next time I'll use words. Mean, true words that make you cry instead. Mina, Jade and Yunho said together. But Juno's mother was already pulling her son away, muttering about that family and raising a little gangster, which honestly wasn't entirely inaccurate. Later that night, after Mina was bathed and in bed, Jade and Yunho sat in their living room, the same space where they'd fought and negotiated and slowly fallen in love, and tried not to laugh. She's a menace, Jade said. She's perfect, Yunho countered. Did you see how she stood up for you? No hesitation. Just complete certainty that you're worth defending. She's too, Yunho. She hit another child. And we'll address that. But Jade. He took her hand. That fire in her. That refusal to accept disrespect. That's all you. And it's going to serve her well in the world we've built. The world we're trying to leave behind, Jade corrected. We agreed. Mina gets a normal childhood. As normal as possible, anyway. Is any Park childhood going to be normal? She's growing up bilingual, bicultural, with more security than most diplomats and a trust fund that could buy a small country. She's also growing up with parents who love her, who are trying to give her choices we never had. That matters, Yunho. I know. He pulled Jade close, and they sat in comfortable silence, the weight of their daughter sleeping peacefully down the hall anchoring them. The next morning, Kim Jae-sung requested an urgent meeting. We have a problem, he said, spreading photographs across Yunho's desk. Someone's been watching Mina. These were taken over the past 3 weeks at her preschool, at the park, at various locations. Professional surveillance. Jade's blood ran cold. The photographs showed Mina playing, laughing, completely unaware she was being observed. Who? Yunho's voice was deadly calm. We're still investigating. Could be remnants of Kim Min-ho's organization looking for revenge. Could be a new player trying to establish leverage. Could be. I don't care who it is, Yunho interrupted. I care about making it stop. Immediately. I've already tripled her security detail, Kim Jae-sung said. But sir, if this is a serious threat, you might want to consider sending Mrs. Park and Mina somewhere safe until. No, Jade said firmly. We're not running. We're not hiding. We're going to find whoever is threatening our daughter, and we're going to eliminate the threat. Permanently. Yunho looked at his wife, this woman who'd transformed from a reluctant bride into a queen, into a mother, into the fiercest partner he could have imagined, and felt that familiar mix of love and terror. Agreed. But Jade, we need to be smart about this. Mina's safety comes first. Always, Jade agreed. Which is why I have an idea. Her idea was audacious and risky. Use Mina as bait. Absolutely not, Yunho said immediately. Hear me out. Whoever is watching Mina is waiting for an opportunity. We give them one, carefully controlled with overwhelming security in place, and we force them to make their move. Then we capture them and find out who sent them. You want to use our 2-year-old daughter as bait in a trap? I want to end this threat before it escalates. Yunho, we've spent 3 years building a safer world for her, but clearly it's not safe enough. Someone thinks they can get to us through our child. We need to prove definitively that they can't. Song Ji-woo, who'd been called in to consult, nodded slowly. It's actually a sound strategy. The key is control. We choose the location, the timing, the variables. We make it look like an opportunity while maintaining complete oversight. And if something goes wrong? Yunho demanded. Then we have Kim Jae-sung and his entire team, plus backup from Choi's organization. Yes, I've already reached out, surrounding our daughter like a human shield, Jade said. Nothing will go wrong, Yunho. I won't let it. After hours of planning, they settled on a strategy. Jade would take Mina to a popular children's museum, a public space where surveillance could be disguised as normal parental vigilance. The security team would be invisible but omnipresent. And they'd wait for whoever was watching to make their move. The day of the operation, Jade dressed Mina in comfortable clothes with a tracker sewn into her shoe and another in her jacket. She tried not to let her fear show as she kissed Yunho goodbye. If anything happens, he started. Nothing will happen. Trust me. Trust our team. Trust that I'll protect her with my life. I know you will. That's what terrifies me. The museum was crowded with families enjoying the weekend. Jade kept Mina close, playing with her in the interactive exhibits, reading books in the quiet corner, behaving exactly like any other mother on an outing. And then she spotted him. A man mid-30s, trying too hard to look casual as he watched Mina. Jade recognized the body language. She'd become expert at identifying threats. She casually touched her earring, activating the communication device hidden there. Northwest corner blue jacket, she murmured, pretending to talk to Mina. Confirmed, came Kim Jae-sung's voice through her hidden earpiece. We have him on visual. There's a second-person woman, southeast corner by the dinosaur exhibit. 2 of them. Are they working together? Affirmative. They're using hand signals. Recommend you move to extraction point. Jade scooped up Mina, who immediately protested. But Mama, I want to see the butterflies. We'll see them another day, baby. Right now we need to. The lights went out. For a heart-stopping moment, the museum plunged into darkness and chaos. Children cried. Adults shouted. And Jade felt hands grabbing for Mina. Training and maternal instinct kicked in simultaneously. Jade twisted, keeping Mina against her body, and drove her elbow backward into something soft. Someone grunted in pain. She ran, not toward the exit but toward where she knew Kim Jae-sung's team was positioned. Emergency lights flickered on. Jade could see the exit now. Could see Kim Jae-sung fighting off the woman while his team subdued the man in the blue jacket. And then she saw the third person. A gun. Pointed not at her, but at Mina. Time slowed. Jade saw everything with crystal clarity. The man's finger tightening on the trigger, the distance between them, the impossibility of reaching cover in time. She made a choice. She turned her body, shielding Mina completely, and waited for the impact. Never came. Yunho tackled the gunman from behind with such violence that they both crashed into a display case. Glass shattered. The gun went flying. And Yunho, calm, controlled Yunho, became something primal. He beat the man with methodical fury, each hit precise and devastating. Kim Jae-sung and his team secured the other attackers, but Yunho didn't stop until the gunman was unconscious and possibly dying. Yunho! Jade's voice cut through his rage. Stop! We need him alive for questioning. Yunho froze, his fists bloody, his chest heaving. He looked at Jade, at Mina crying in her mother's arms, and the fury drained away, replaced by relief so intense it brought him to his knees. Jade rushed to him, Mina sandwiched between them as they held each other in the middle of the chaos. You came, Jade whispered. You were supposed to stay back. I heard through the comms that there were 3 of them. I knew you didn't know about the third. I couldn't. His voice broke. I couldn't lose you. Either of you. Mama. Dada. Mina's small voice was confused and scared. Why is Dada crying? Because he loves us very much, Jade said, kissing her daughter's head while holding her husband's bloodied hand. And sometimes love is scary. Later, at their secure facility, the 3 attackers revealed everything. They'd been hired by a new player in Seoul's underground, Someone who thought targeting Park's daughter would force Yunho back into full criminal operations, destabilizing his transition to legitimacy and creating opportunities for others. The person behind it was arrested within 24 hours. Not by Park security, but by legitimate law enforcement, using evidence that Jade had meticulously compiled and delivered through official channels. "You're learning," Song Ji-woo said approvingly when she heard how Jade had handled the aftermath. "Using legal tools to eliminate threats. That's the future of power." "That's the only future I want Mina to inherit," Jade replied. That night, after Mina was finally asleep, it had taken hours of stories and songs and reassurance. Jade and Yunho sat on their balcony, looking out over Seoul's glittering skyline. "I've been thinking," Yunho said carefully. "Dangerous." He smiled. "I want another baby." Jade turned to stare at him. "We were almost killed today, our daughter was traumatized. And your response is to want another child? My response is to want more of this. More of us. More life in the middle of all the danger and chaos. Mina shouldn't be alone. She should have siblings, family, and more importantly." He took Jade's hand. "I want more children with you. I want a house full of little menaces who have your fire and hopefully some of my strategic thinking." "You're insane." "Probably. But am I wrong?" Jade was quiet for a long moment, considering. Then she smiled. "No, you're not wrong. I want that too. But Yunho, if we're going to have more children, we need to accelerate the transition. I want them growing up in a world where their father's business is completely legitimate. Where they don't need armed guards at preschool." "Agreed. 5 years. We finish the transition completely in 5 years. And then we fill this house with babies." "Deal." They sealed it with a kiss, and 6 weeks later, Jade discovered she was pregnant again. The pregnancy announcement sent shockwaves through Seoul's underground. Park Yunho wasn't just transitioning to legitimacy. He was building a dynasty, family, a legacy that would outlast any of them. This time the pregnancy was twins. 2 boys who they would name Jae and June. Names that honored both cultures, that represented the fusion of everything they'd built together. Mina, now 3, took the news with typical toddler outrage. 2 babies. I only wanted 1 sibling. Well, you're getting 2, Jade said, trying not to laugh. Think of it as buy 1 get 1 free. I didn't buy anything. Why do I have to share mama and dada with 2 babies? Because family is about sharing, Yunho said, lifting his daughter into his lap. And because you're going to be the best big sister those boys could ask for. Will they hit people who are mean about mama? Eventually, yes, probably. Okay. Then they can stay. The twins were born healthy and loud, and their arrival coincided with the final phase of Park Industries' transition. The last of the illegal operations were either shut down or transferred to legitimate structures. The underground elements that remained were so deeply hidden and compartmentalized that even most of Park's employees didn't know they existed. Seoul's underground adapted. Some families followed Park's lead, transitioning toward legitimacy. Others maintained their traditional operations. But everyone understood the new reality. The parks were protected not just by violence anymore, but by law, by political connections, by legitimate power that was harder to challenge and impossible to eliminate. Jade, managing 3 children under 4 while also serving as Park Industries' chief strategy officer, sometimes wondered how her life had become this beautiful chaos. "Remember when we hated each other?" she said one morning as Yunho changed June's diaper while Mina tried to feed Jae and Jade pumped breast milk while on a conference call. "Vaguely," Yunho said. "I mostly remember being terrified of you. You were terrified of me. You are terrifying. Beautiful and brilliant and absolutely uncontrollable. You destroyed every plan I had for keeping my heart safely locked away. Good. Your heart was wasted locked away." Mina looked up from where she was very seriously explaining to Jae why vegetables were important. "Mama, when I grow up, can I be the boss like you?" "Baby, you can be anything you want. I want to be the boss. And hit people who are mean. But only with words first, violence second, like Dada taught me." Jade and Yunho exchanged glances, trying not to laugh. "We've created a monster," Jade murmured. "We've created a legacy," Yunho corrected. "A family that knows how to survive, how to fight, how to build something better than what we inherited." He was right. Looking around their living room, toys scattered everywhere, children laughing and crying and making beautiful chaos, the man she loved changing diapers with the same intensity he once brought to criminal negotiations, Jade realized something profound. They'd won. Not the underground wars or the territory battles or the power struggles. They'd won something bigger. The right to build a life on their own terms. To create a family out of obligation and force it into something real and precious. To transform pain into purpose. "I love you," she said suddenly. Yunho looked up, Jay in his arms, surprise and warmth in his eyes. "I love you too." What brought that on? Just this. All of this. The fact that we built something beautiful from something broken. The fact that I would choose you every single day, even knowing everything I know now. Even knowing I'm a control freak with trust issues and a violent past. Especially knowing that. Because you're also a man who learned to love, who chose to change, who became the father our children deserve. You're not who you were when we met, Yunho. And neither am I. "No," he agreed. "We're better. Together we're so much better." 10 years later, the Park family had become a fixture of Seoul's legitimate elite. Mina, now 12, spoke 4 languages and had recently told her parents she wanted to be either a diplomat or a defense attorney. "I haven't decided which is more useful for destroying evil people." The twins, Jae and June, were rambunctious 10-year-olds who'd inherited their father's strategic mind and their mother's stubborn defiance. There had been another daughter, Erin, born 3 years after the twins. And most recently, a surprise baby boy, Kai, who was currently 6 months old and had everyone wrapped around his tiny fingers. Park Industries was now completely legitimate, though Jade and Yunho maintained carefully hidden connections to Seoul's underground, not for profit but for information and influence. They'd learned that you couldn't entirely escape your past, but you could transform it into something that served your present. The underground itself had changed. The old guard had mostly retired or died. The new generation was smarter, more strategic, less reliant on violence and more focused on financial crimes, cybersecurity, and global operations. Jade, now in her late 30s and considered one of Seoul's most influential businesswomen, had just been interviewed for Forbes Asia. The interviewer had asked about her unlikely journey from Lagos to Seoul, from forced bride to CEO. "Do you ever regret it?" the interviewer had asked. "Being forced into marriage? Having your choices taken away?" Jade had considered the question carefully before answering. "I regret that I didn't have the choice. I regret the circumstances that brought Yunho and me together. But I don't regret where we ended up. Sometimes the things we think will destroy us become the foundations of our greatest achievements. I was forced to marry a stranger in a foreign country. But I chose to stay. Chose to fight. I chose to build a life and a family and a future that honored both my Nigerian heritage and my Korean present. That choice I'll never regret." The interview had gone viral, inspiring countless discussions about forced marriage, cultural adaptation, female empowerment, and the complexities of love. Tonight, the Park family was hosting a dinner party. Song Ji-woo and her husband, Choi Dae-young, yes, they'd gotten married 5 years ago in a ceremony that had shocked everyone, were there. Kim Jae-sung, who'd become more family than employee over the years. Some of Jade's friends from the expat community. And surprisingly, Professor Han, who'd taught Jade Korean all those years ago and had become a beloved honorary grandmother to the Park children. As Jade looked around her dining room, her children laughing, her husband entertaining guests, her friends and found family all gathered together, she felt overwhelmed with gratitude. "Penny for your thoughts," Yunho murmured, coming to stand beside her. "Just thinking about how far we've come. How impossible this all seemed when I first walked into this penthouse. Do you miss Lagos sometimes?" "Every day," Jade admitted. "I miss my family, the food, the chaos, the way rain sounds on zinc roofs." I miss speaking Yoruba and Pidgin without translating in my head first. But Yunho. She turned to face him fully. I've built a new home here. With you. With our children. This is where I belong now. We should take the kids to Nigeria, Yunho said suddenly. This summer. Let them meet your family, experience Lagos, understand that part of their heritage. Jade's eyes widened. Really? With 5 children? You know that's going to be complete chaos. I've learned to thrive in chaos. Besides, our children should know where they come from. Both sides. They're Nigerian and Korean, and they deserve to fully claim both identities. Before Jade could respond, Mina appeared at her elbow. Mama, Uncle Jae-sung said when I'm 16, he'll teach me self-defense. But I want to start now. I'm already 12. That's practically an adult. You're 12. That's practically still a baby, Jade countered. But Mama, you always say women need to know how to protect themselves. And with Adaeze past, Mina lowered her voice conspiratorially, we all know some people might still have grudges. I should be prepared. Jade looked at Yunho, who was trying not to smile. Their daughter had inherited both their strategic minds and their ability to argue their way into anything. All right, Jade finally said. Basic self-defense. But Mina, if I hear you've used those skills on anyone unless it's genuine self-defense. I know. Words first, violence second. I'm not a barbarian, Mama. Could have fooled me, Jay called from across the room, where he and June were building something elaborate with blocks while Aaron supervised by knocking down whatever they built. Jay, that's mean. Mina shot back. Just because I have standards and you're okay being mediocre. Kids, Yunho said with the long-suffering tone of a man who'd learned that parenting was infinitely more challenging than running a criminal empire. Can we have one dinner party where you don't roast each other? That's literally impossible, June said matter-of-factly. Roasting is how we show love. We're a healthy, functional family, Jay added with a grin. Song Ji-woo laughed from her seat. Jade, Yunho, you've created exactly the children you deserve. Brilliant, stubborn, and completely impossible to control. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said about our parenting, Jade said dryly. The evening continued with food, laughter, and the comfortable chaos of family. At one point, Professor Han pulled Jade aside. I'm proud of you, the older woman said. When I first met you, you were so lost, so angry. But you've built something remarkable. Not just a successful career or a beautiful family, but a bridge between worlds. You've proven that love can grow in the most unlikely soil. Thank you, Professor. I couldn't have done any of this without your patience teaching me Korean. And teaching me that Seoul could be home. Seoul isn't your home, dear. Family is your home. And you've built a magnificent one. Later, after the guests had left and the children were finally, in bed, Jade and Yunho collapsed onto their sofa, exhausted but content. 5 children, Jade mused. How did we end up with 5 children? Lack of self-control, Yunho suggested. Says the man who built his entire reputation on control. You destroyed that control. Thoroughly. He pulled her close. And I wouldn't have it any other way. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes from years of knowing each other completely. Jade thought back to that first day, walking into this penthouse as a prisoner in everything but name. She'd hated this place, hated him, hated everything her life had become. Now this penthouse was filled with children's artwork and family photos. The sterile showroom had become a home. The cold stranger had become the love of her life. The prison had become a sanctuary. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I'd refused? Jade asked quietly. If I'd let my father face the consequences instead of agreeing to marry you? Every day, Yunho admitted. I think about how my life would be empty. How I'd still be the Ice Prince, emotionally frozen, strategically brilliant but completely hollow. You saved me, Jade. Not from my enemies or my lifestyle, but from myself. We saved each other, she corrected. You gave me strength I didn't know I had. You challenged me to be more than I thought possible. We weren't a fairy tale, we were a war. But we fought on the same side, and we won. We're still winning, Yunho said. Every day we choose each other. Every day we build this family. Every day we prove that forced beginnings don't determine inevitable endings. A crash sounded from upstairs, followed by Mina's voice. It wasn't me. It was definitely her. June's voice floated down. Jade and Yunho looked at each other and laughed. I should, Jade started. Let them work it out, Yunho said. Unless someone's bleeding, they can handle it. That's very evolved of you. I'm learning. Slowly. With frequent setbacks. Another crash. This time accompanied by crying. Aaron's distinctive wail. Okay, now someone's crying, Jade said, standing. I'll go, Yunho offered. You handled bedtime. My turn for crisis management. As he headed upstairs, Jade heard him muttering. Running a criminal empire was easier than this. Jade smiled, pulled out her phone, and scrolled through photos. Her wedding day, both of them looking stiff and uncomfortable. Their first real date weeks after the wedding. Mina's birth. Twins. Family vacations. Birthday parties. Quiet moments and chaotic ones. A whole life, documented in images. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister in Lagos. Mama says to ask when you're bringing your husband and all those children home. She wants to feed them proper Nigerian food and tell Yunho all your embarrassing childhood stories. Jade laughed and typed back. This summer. Tell Mama to prepare for chaos. 5 children plus Yunho equals maximum disaster potential. The response was immediate. She's already planning the menu. Fair warning, she's going to try to convert your Korean husband into a full Nigerian by the end of the trip. She's welcome to try. Yunho's stubborn, but Nigerian mothers are a force of nature. Yunho returned carrying Aaron, who'd apparently had a nightmare. Their daughter was snuggled against his chest, already falling back asleep. Crisis resolved. Jade asked. Mina and the twins were having a who can be quietest competition, which, as you can imagine, is exactly as loud as it sounds. Aaron woke up from the noise, had a nightmare about dinosaurs eating her breakfast, and needed reassurance that her cereal was safe. Normal Saturday night in the Park household. Absolutely normal, he agreed, gently placing Aaron back in Jade's arms so she could carry their daughter back to bed. After settling Aaron again, and triple-checking that the other children were actually, finally asleep, Jade and Yunho retreated to their bedroom. Their sanctuary within the sanctuary. I have something for you, Yunho said, reaching into his nightstand drawer. If it's another baby-related surprise, I'm divorcing you, Jade warned. 5 is enough. 5 is more than enough. It's not that. Although. He grinned at her expression. No, I'm kidding. 5 is definitely enough. He handed her a small velvet box. Inside was a necklace, a stunning piece with both Nigerian coral beads and Korean jade, woven together in an intricate design that somehow made 2 completely different traditions harmonize perfectly. I had it commissioned, Yunho said. To represent us. 2 cultures, 2 people woven together into something new. Something that honors both traditions while creating its own identity. Jade's eyes filled with tears. Yunho, it's beautiful. Like you. Like our family. Like everything we've built. He took the necklace and fastened it around her neck. I know I don't say it enough, but thank you. For staying when you could have left. For fighting when you could have surrendered. For loving me when I didn't deserve it and didn't know how to accept it. You did deserve it. You just didn't believe you did. There's a difference. She touched the necklace, feeling the weight of it, the symbolism. I love it. Love you. And Yunho. Choose you again. Every single time. Even knowing how hard it would be, how much we'd have to fight, how many times we'd want to kill each other. I'd still choose you. They kissed, slow and deep, with the familiarity of a decade together and the heat that had never quite burned out. When they finally broke apart, Yunho rested his forehead against hers. We did it, he whispered. We took something forced and painful and transformed it into something beautiful. We did, Jade agreed. And we're not done yet. We have 5 children to raise, a company to run, a legacy to build, and probably several more catastrophes to navigate. Bring them on. As long as I have you beside me, I can handle anything. Even another child, she teased. Jade, I swear to God. She laughed, the sound bright and free. I'm kidding. 5 is absolutely, definitely, completely enough. Good. Because I don't think my heart could handle the stress of another pregnancy. You get more terrifying each time. By the 5th one, you were basically running board meetings between contractions. Someone had to keep the company operating. You were too busy panicking. I was not, okay, I was completely panicking. They settled into bed, wrapped around each other the way they'd learned to sleep over the years, a tangle of limbs that somehow felt perfectly comfortable. Hey Yunho. When we go to Lagos this summer, my mother's going to interrogate you. Thoroughly. About everything. She's been waiting a decade to give you the, if you hurt my daughter speech in person. I'm terrified. You should be. Nigerian mothers are scarier than any criminal organization. I fought off the Lee family, restructured Seoul's entire underground, and built a legitimate empire. I think I can handle one Nigerian mother. Jade smiled in the darkness. That's adorable that you think that. They fell asleep like that, holding each other, their home full of children and love and the beautiful chaos they'd created together. 20 years later, Mina Park Seo, now 32 and a successful international human rights lawyer, stood at the podium of the Seoul International Convention Center. She was giving the keynote address at a conference on forced marriage and women's agency. My story begins with my mother, she said, her voice clear and confident. Adaeze Okonkwo, though the world would come to know her as Jade Park Seo, was forced into marriage to pay her father's debt. She was 24 years old, alone in a foreign country, married to a stranger who was both dangerous and cold. She had every reason to give up, to accept her fate, to become the submissive wife everyone expected. Instead she fought. She adapted. She learned. She transformed what was meant to be a cage into a launching pad. She took a forced marriage and built a partnership that would not only change her life but reshape an entire criminal organization toward legitimacy and social responsibility. I'm not going to stand here and romanticize forced marriage. What happened to my mother was wrong. It violated her autonomy, her choices, her fundamental human rights. But what she did with those circumstances, that's what we're here to talk about. Not the violation but the victory. Not the force but the resistance. In the audience, Jade sat between Yunho and their now adult children. Her hair, now streaked with silver, was still worn natural and proud. Yunho's temples were gray, but his hand holding hers was as strong as ever. She's magnificent, Yunho whispered. She's ours, Jade replied. All of them are. And they're going to change the world. Jay had become a cybersecurity expert, using his skills to help protect vulnerable organizations from digital threats. June was a social entrepreneur, building businesses that employed former gang members and gave them legitimate opportunities. Aaron was in medical school, determined to provide healthcare to underserved communities. And Kai, the baby, was currently in his 2nd year at Seoul National University, studying international relations with a focus on African-Korean partnerships. They were the legacy, the proof that forced beginnings didn't determine inevitable endings, that love could grow in the most unlikely soil, that 2 people from completely different worlds could create something extraordinary together. As Mina continued her speech, Jade felt Yunho's hand tighten around hers. She looked at him and saw the same emotion she felt reflected in his eyes. Gratitude, pride, love, and the deep satisfaction of knowing they'd done it. They'd taken something broken and built something beautiful. They'd transformed pain into purpose, obligation into devotion, strangers into soulmates. After the speech, as their children gathered around, taking photos and celebrating Mina's success, Jade pulled Yunho aside. Would you do it again? She asked quietly. Knowing everything we went through, all the pain and fear and struggle, would you choose this life again? Yunho didn't hesitate. Every single time. Without question. You're the best decision I never got to make but somehow got to keep. I love you, Jade Park Seo. I have loved you since the moment you refused to break. And I'll love you until my last breath. Well, Jade said, her eyes shining. Lucky for you, I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me, Park Yunho. For better or worse, in legitimacy and in crime. We're legitimate now, he interrupted with a smile. Mostly legitimate, she corrected. There's still that offshore account in the Caymans that we don't talk about at international conventions, he said quickly, looking around to make sure no one was listening. Jade laughed, the sound bright and free. Exactly the same as it had been 20 years ago when they'd first started this journey. Some things changed, their hair, their circumstances, their lives. But some things remained constant. Their love. Their partnership. Their stubborn, beautiful refusal to be defined by how they started instead of what they built. Mama. Dada. I called. Family photo. Come on. They joined their children. 5 adults now who'd grown into remarkable people. As the photographer counted down, Jade looked at each of their faces. Mina's fierce determination. Jay's quiet strength. June's infectious enthusiasm. Erin's compassionate wisdom. Kai's boundless optimism. This was their legacy. Not the money or the power or the empire. These 5 humans who'd learned that love could grow anywhere, that strength came in many forms, and that family wasn't just about blood, it was about choice. Say kimchi, the photographer called. Jollof rice. All 5 children shouted instead, laughing at their parents' expressions. It was perfect. Chaotic, multicultural, completely ridiculous, and absolutely perfect. Just like the family they'd built. Just like the love story nobody saw coming. Just like the life that proved forced beginnings could lead to chosen forever. If you've enjoyed this journey from enemies to partners, from forced marriage to found family, from Lagos to Seoul and everywhere in between, please like this video. Subscribe to our channel for more stories of love, resilience, and transformation, and comment below telling us, what's one thing you'd fight for the way Jade fought for her family? Your answers might inspire our next story. Remember, your beginning doesn't determine your ending. Your choices do. And sometimes the best love stories are the ones nobody saw coming. Not even the people living them. This has been From Enemies to Partners. Jade and Yunho's saga. Thank you for watching and we'll see you in the next story. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss when we upload. Until next time, keep fighting for your happily ever after, whatever form that takes.